For my UDL, I did a online and in-person class for this segment. The online class was in elementary school where many of the students were segregated into groups of four, where they wore uniforms such as white collar and khakis, and many of the students came prepared with necessary materials such as a pencil and notebook and what was given to them in their desk. In my in-person class with Miss Wolf, many of the students were given laptops and textbooks, and they wore items such as t-shirts, jackets, hats, jeans, tennis shoes, and they were also integrated into the class as they were seated into rows. And that was for the first question of whether students were integrated or segregated, and to describe them, if they wore types of uniforms and other clothings, and if they had necessary materials. For the next question I have here is, how were the students grasping what was being taught, and were they demonstrating levels of ownership? For the online elementary school observation, many of the students grasped the concept by explaining it back to their teacher, allowing them to show that the teacher that they understand and that they're memorizing it. And in Miss Wolf's class, many of the students were preparing for tests by going over lectures with packets that were provided to them by their teacher. And these packets were a form of homework, lecture notes, and a study guide all in one, allowing them to have future resources for their upcoming exams. These next two questions are referring to the teacher. The first being, how did the teacher engage with the students? When a student asked a question, did the teacher walk to the student, or did the teacher have the student come to them? For my in-person class, Miss Wolf often walked to students if they had questions. However, if she was giving a lecture and a student raised their hand, she would answer the question from where she was standing and then would move on with the lecture. She would give examples and demonstrations of issues such as the rule of law during her lectures with her students and engaging with them on whether they understood the concept or not. For my online observation of the elementary school, the teacher sat with the students and participated with them throughout the entire class during their group circle sit down. When answering questions, the teacher remained seated in a group circle in the center of it and would call upon the student by their name. And the last question is, did the teacher appear prepared with the lesson taught? Was the teacher organized? And did they have a prompt? For my in-person class, Miss Wolf had a lesson plan prepared on a 5-lesson basis during her lectures. Her lecture were focused on judicial branch and other forms of government, and allowed students to understand the concept of law, and she would give her understanding of what was being taught when answering questions, and by giving a lot of examples of judicial law, especially examples of regarding people that are involved within the judicial law branch during today's day in time. For my online elementary class observation, the teacher prepared a lesson plan using activities from a previous class, where she organized an activity using shapes and had students think on why and how the shapes were organized, allowing students to understand a concept that they were previously taught and to show that they memorized and understood the concept